Not only are Disney and Lucasfilm currently working on Episode 9, which serves as the final installment of the Skywalker saga, but their priority right now is, of course, the new Star Wars trilogy, also known as the fourth Star Wars trilogy. This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, one thing that a lot of people are very interested in when it comes to these set of new Star Wars movies being created by the creators of Game of Thrones, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, a lot of people are very intrigued about what they could possibly do and what they could bring to the table for the Star Wars franchise. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about the future of the franchise, of course, and a lot of people are very concerned on the changes that are going actually through the entire franchise. We do know that Disney and Lucasfilm want to do something completely different when it comes to the future of everything Star Wars. Now, this is where things begin to get very interesting, is that one of the big changes planned for the fourth Star Wars trilogy is to have David Benioff and D.B. Weiss write the script in a fashion for some of the characters that would open up standalone films based within the new era of Star Wars and in this new Star Wars timeline in order to move away from the age of the Empire and the First Order. It said it will be used in a way for them to expand the franchise into a completely new direction, while also focusing on the classic timelines on the side, as they progressively evolve the Star Wars franchise. So essentially, what they are trying to do with some of the different story pieces of episodes of, you know, whatever they're going to be called, 10, 11, and 12, or Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, or divided up into chapters, we're not quite sure. But these big changes that are going through the fourth Star Wars trilogy probably have all to do with the different vision that Disney and Lucasfilm have for what they want to do with this franchise. We do know that the creators, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, won't be starting on this fourth trilogy until this summer, which originally they were supposed to start writing this March, but that was all because Disney and Lucasfilm want to do something entirely new with the new Star Wars trilogy. Number one, they want this trilogy to connect to the sequel trilogy either lightly or in a significant manner. And two, they want this new trilogy to be written in a way in order to create future spin-offs based within this new timeline. And honestly, I'm not quite sure about you guys, but I think that this could and or could not work. It really does all depend on how these characters are presented to us, the audience, how the whole entire story is executed on the big screen by the time this arrives in theaters, you know, give or take 2021 or 22, whenever the first film will drop, is the only moment in time in which I think that they will know that fans are going to accept the new Star Wars trilogy that has nothing to do with the Skywalker saga itself. However, they are still trying to connect it to the sequel trilogy, at least lightly. And that's probably because they want everything to become full circle and everything to actually be connected. Meanwhile, Rian Johnson's trilogy, which by the way is different than this one, Rian Johnson's trilogy is going to be something completely new in and on its own. So I think that's why Disney and Lucasfilm want this trilogy to connect to the sequel trilogies, because they want it to be based within the mythology. And not only that, they also want David Benioff and D.B. Weiss to actually write it in a certain way, in a specific format, for some of the characters that will open up a lot of standalone films based within this Star Wars timeline. You know, it's kind of thinking it like this. Kind of looking at the sequel trilogy and seeing a Knights of Ren spin-off or a Snoke spin-off film or something around those lines. That's what they want to do with the new Star Wars trilogy, is where it's written in a specific way where they could actually easily create standalone films based on some of the main and side characters that will be introduced in these three big movies. Now, with that being said, a lot of people are very curious on whether or not, you know, this new trilogy will even come to fruition if Episode 9 fails at the box office. And I would definitely have to say that the future of this franchise most definitely does depend on the success of Episode 9. Now, I think that a lot of people are still very upset about what happened to The Last Jedi, and I don't blame people out there for being upset. So I think that it's really going to take a lot of work for the marketing by Disney and Lucasfilm in episode 9, of course, in order to gain the trust of fans and to bring them in and to really, you know, kind of just bind the Star Wars community back together into one piece here. This way they will indeed accept this new Star Wars trilogy, which I think if it's good, people will accept it regardless, as well as, you know, it's gonna have a good story and it's gonna have great characters and great character development and it flows very well. And as long as it can do things like that, I think then it's, you know, the point in time in which it really can evolve, the Star Wars franchise. And the fact that they want them to write this thing in a way where it can create future spin-offs and future standalone films, I think is honestly very ambitious of Disney and Lucasfilm. I'm not quite sure, like I say, if it's a good or a bad move, or if it's risky at that to write it in a fashion like that. But let me know what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.